The first time he came to the house, Mara let him in without a word. It started with a game. Her husband, Daniel, worked late on Thursdays, always had. It was routine, almost ritual. She spent those nights curled up with wine and old records, a book she never finished, and a growing restlessness that clung to the silence of their high-ceiling home. Then Vincent arrived. He wasn't a stranger, a colleague of Daniel's, poised, elegant, quietly intense. When he knocked that first time, holding an unopened bottle of wine and a subtle smile, it was clear this wasn't just a social visit. She should have said no. Instead, she stepped aside and let him in. That night, nothing happened, but the next Thursday, he returned. Mara didn't understand what held her attention more, the risk, the secrecy, or the way Vincent looked at her, as though peeling back every layer she learned to bury. He never touched her at first. Instead, he talked, low voice, deep eyes, asking her questions no one else ever dared. Are you satisfied? Do you know what you want? Would you ask for it if you did? By week 3, Mara did ask. They created boundaries. Vincent would only come on Thursdays, only when Daniel wasn't home, only when Mara opened the door willingly, no coercion, no force, but within those limits, she gave up control completely. Each encounter blurred lines. He never hurt her, but he challenged her, restrained her, commanded her, made her say things she never thought she'd admit out loud, made her feel known. There was power in surrender and in secrecy. But secrets have weight, and with each passing week, Mara began to wonder, was this still her choice? Or had she handed over something more than her body? Thursdays had become sacred. Not in a religious sense. Vincent hadn't believed in anything holy for a long time. This ritual, it was devotion in its purest form. Performance, a confession, an indulgence. Each Thursday at 7:03 p.m., he stood before Mara's door, waiting. Never knocking. If she didn't open it, he'd leave. That was the rule. But she always opened it. And every time, her breath caught, just a little, as if surprised by her own willingness. That flicker in her eyes, the hesitation before she stepped aside, was everything to him. Consent wasn't just spoken, it was body language, silence, the trembling thrill of anticipation. He watched for it. He worshipped it. Tonight, she wore that silk robe again, the one she hadn't worn for her husband in months. Vincent stepped in without a word. He always did. Their agreements were unspoken now, but deeply understood. No pleasantries, no small talk, only the unfolding of roles. He hung his coat slowly, deliberately, let her feel the shift in atmosphere. It was part of the tension, the waiting. She stood barefoot in the kitchen doorway, arms folded as if holding herself together. Say it, he said quietly. Her voice barely escaped her lips. I want you to take control. He closed the space between them, not fast, not rough. Control wasn't about force. It was about precision. He brushed her hair behind her ear and watched her shiver. You remember the rules? She nodded. Safe word is amber, and if you use it, everything stops. He smiled. Good girl. In the bedroom, their bedroom, in a house that was never his, he tied her wrist with a velvet rope she bought herself. She liked the softness, the contradiction. She wasn't helpless. She could speak, stop him, pull away, but she never did. Each week, he pushed further, not to break her, but to reveal her, to show her parts of herself even she didn't know existed. Tonight, she whimpered when he whispered praise into her ear, voice low, commanding, reverent, not vulgar, worshipful. You're beautiful like this, open, honest, mine, for now. It wasn't about sex alone. It was about what bloomed in her eyes, that perfect raw surrender. She wanted this as much as he did, maybe more. After, he untied her slowly, as if returning something delicate to the world. They didn't cuddle. They never had. He stayed while she showered, stayed while she dried off, and silently dressed in soft cotton instead of silk. At 9:16 p.m., she walked him to the door. As always, her eyes searched his. Next Thursday, she asked, voice quieter than usual. He nodded, slipping into the night like a ghost, a ritual, renewed. It started small. A delay, 7 minutes past 7, then 10. Vincent stood at her door, as he always did, coat crisp, heart still, eyes on the stained glass window. She always opened it, except tonight. Just as he turned to leave, the door creaked open. Slowly, no words, no apology. She stood barefoot, as usual, but she wasn't wearing the silk robe, just lace, black and bold, and a look in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Confidence. Not the shyness wrapped in obedience, not that delicate ache she wore like perfume. This was new. Mara looked at him not like prey, but like a woman who stopped running. You're late, he said, voice even. She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You waited. He didn't reply. He just stepped in, but the air was different tonight. Dense, charged, unfamiliar. Inside, the lights were dimmer than usual. Candles, shadows, soft jazz playing from a record player. She had prepared something. A test? A trap? A transformation? I want to make a change tonight, she said once he hung his coat. Vincent studied her. He didn't like surprises. The arrangement had been sculpted, precise. The structure of boundaries, control, and ritual gave him dominance. It gave her freedom. It worked. But now the lines blurred. I'm listening, he said carefully. I want to try something with you restrained. Silence. She took a step forward. Not to reverse things, she said. Just balance them. You see me and I want to see you. Vincent's pulse ticked. He hadn't been tied in years. Not since someone he trusted once used rope like a weapon instead of an invitation. He didn't panic, but he hesitated, just enough for her to see it. And she did. I'm not here to hurt you, she said gently, but if you ask me to stop, I will. She was using his words, his rules, and somehow that disarmed him more than any rope ever could. He nodded once and gave her his wrist. The rope was the same, soft, dark, practiced. She tied him to the headboard with reverent fingers, copying his knots from memory. He watched her, not just what she did, but how she looked doing it. No hesitation, no permission-seeking gaze. Mara was not the same woman who had first opened her door. When she climbed on top of him, he realized the shift wasn't just physical. She didn't want to dominate him, not like he had her. She wanted to see him, vulnerable and open, the way she'd been for weeks, the way he made her feel. And now, it was his turn. Her mouth found his skin, slow, intentional. She whispered things he wasn't used to hearing. Not praise, not submission. Worship. It undid him. He could have stopped her at any point, but he didn't. Because somewhere inside him, a hunger that had always been fed through control now surged at the taste of trust. Real, earned, two-way trust. Later, when she untied him, neither of them spoke, but something had shifted between them. The way tectonic plates shift beneath the earth. Quiet, trembling, permanent. The game they had played was no longer just his. It was theirs now, and that scared him more than anything else. It was supposed to be sex, power, control, a closed circuit of tension and release. He'd done this before, not with Mara, but with others. Submissive women drawn to his confidence. Women who needed someone to take the wheel for a few hours, even if they pretended otherwise. It had always been safe, as far as dangerous things could be. But Mara wasn't safe anymore. Not for him. He thought about her outside of Thursdays now, in the middle of conference calls, in the quiet hours before sleep. In the seconds between heartbeats, when he realized he was gripping his wine glass too tightly because something reminded him of her. A scent, a laugh, the faint sound of footsteps behind a closed door. She had done something unforgivable. She stopped being just a body. She became a presence, and it infuriated him. The following Thursday, he came early. Mara opened the door before he could knock. She looked surprised to see him ahead of schedule. Her robe was half tied, her mouth still pink from red wine. She wasn't ready. Good. He stepped inside without asking, stripped off his coat, and dropped it over the back of her chair. The atmosphere was thick, but not with desire, not yet. Something deeper, murkier. She watched him. You're early. You changed the rules last week, he said. I thought I'd return the favor. She raised a brow. And what do you want tonight? He didn't answer with words. Instead, he crossed the room, took her face in his hands, and kissed her. Not like a dominant, not like a man performing a role, like a man drowning. Her lips parted, her hand slid up his chest, hesitated, then gripped his shirt like she needed to hold on. He walked her backward, kissing her harder and deeper until her back hit the wall and her robe slipped open, bearing skin he knew too well. And somehow, not well enough. It was like seeing her again for the first time. No candles, no setup, just her. He didn't tie her tonight. He took her in a hallway, raw and unstructured, their bodies colliding in frantic, desperate rhythm. Her moans were different now, not from submission, but from need, mutual, exposed, intimate. When it was over, they sat on the floor, her head resting on his shoulder. Neither of them moved. He ran a hand slowly down her back, not possessive, not demanding, just afraid to let go. I think about you when you're not here, she said softly, after what felt like hours. He didn't reply, not because he didn't feel the same, but because saying it would change everything. Because this was supposed to be ritual, transaction, a control burn. Now, it was like a wildfire. "You're not supposed to," he finally said. She pulled back to look at him. "And you are?" He didn't answer. He didn't have an answer. That night when he left her door, he didn't feel triumphant. He felt hollow, addicted, terrified, and for the first time in his life, he realized control was never about rope or silence or ritual. Control was not having to feel. And now, she'd taken that from him too. You've just tasted a drop of the dark. Ready for more? Subscribe to Amorous Sanctum and let the shadows pull you deeper into a world of forbidden fantasy and wicked romance. Have a dark desire you love to see unfold? Whisper it in the comments. We adore your imagination. Until we meet again, don't be afraid to crave. I used to think silence was safe. A soft thing, like snow over a grave. But now I know it can grow teeth, gnawing and grinding behind your ribs, hollowing you out from the inside. And that's what the silence between us had become. At first, it was little things. Keys placed differently on the hook, her phone always face down, the half-second delay before she answered me, like her brain was somewhere else, or with someone else. My wife, Camilla, was meticulous. A quiet, elegant kind of beautiful. The type who made space feel sacred, even if she barely filled it with words anymore. We'd been married 6 years, and somewhere in the fourth, she started retreating. Not cold, just unavailable. Her touch became functional. Her gaze rarely lingered. I told myself it was work. She'd gotten a promotion and more meetings, more late hours, more phone calls she'd take in the hallway, whispering. I tried confronting her once. She just smiled, brushed her fingers through my hair, and said, "You're being paranoid, babe. I love you." But love isn't supposed to feel like a performance, and my instincts weren't lying. The idea of the camera came slowly, like a rock creeping into wood. I ordered it online and tiny, disguised as a smoke detector. I installed it above the bookshelf in the den, discreet, perfect angle of the living room couch. It took everything in me not to feel like a monster when I tested it. But I told myself, if she was lying, then I deserved the truth. The first 2 weeks, nothing happened. Just her watching TV, reading, sipping wine, normal. I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. Until Thursday night. I'd been working late at the office, but I checked the footage from my phone out of habit. I watched her walk into the room in her silk robe. She poured 2 glasses of wine. Then he entered. Tall, confident, a little too at home in my space. His name was Devin. I met him at her holiday party once. Clean cut, charming, and fucking smug. I thought nothing of him at the time. He kissed her like he owned her mouth. Slow, practice. My Camilla moved into it. I watched, frozen, as she pulled him down onto the couch. The robe slid open, and she wore nothing underneath. Her nipples peeked instantly in the cool air. She let him touch her, like I hadn't touched her in months. No hesitation, no shame. I should have closed the app. Instead, I turned up the volume. He undressed her slowly, worshipping her with his hands, his mouth. She made sounds I hadn't heard in years, needy, breathless, alive. He knelt between her legs and ate like a man starving. Camilla gripped his hair and rode his tongue, whispering, "That's it. Don't stop. God, you're better than him." I stopped breathing. She said my name, not lovingly, not even angrily, just flat. Ethan doesn't fuck me like this. He hasn't in a long time. They made love on the couch. Her face tilted toward the camera I'd installed without her knowing. Her moans echoed in my headphones, while my hands moved between my legs in a haze of nausea and heat. I hated her. I loved her. I wanted to destroy her and bury myself inside her at the same time. They finished. They didn't cuddle. He left soon after, and she just lay there, draped over the cushions like some ancient goddess after ritual sacrifice. I watched the footage 3 more times that night, not out of rage, but out of obsession. I didn't confront her, not yet. I wanted more. I repositioned the camera, added another in the bedroom, one in the hallway. I became the invisible god of our house, witnessing every secret. For the next 3 weeks, he came every Thursday, sometimes Tuesday, once, even Sunday morning while I was at the gym. Each time, it got rougher, hungrier. She told him how wet he made her, how she wished they didn't have to sneak around. She told him she was thinking of leaving me. That should have broke me, but instead, it aroused me. One night, I stayed home early and pretended to sleep in our guest room, claiming a migraine. She thought I was knocked out cold. I watched him from the live feed, bedroom this time. She blindfolded him, tied his hands. She straddled him and rode him mercilessly, whispering all things I never got from her anymore. How good he felt her, how much he loved being watched, though he didn't know it. The last part snapped something loose in me. She knew. She knew about the cameras. She was performing for me. The next day, she kissed me good morning, made me coffee, smiled a little too long. I played along. "Big meeting tonight?" I asked casually. She nodded. "Late one, don't wait up." I watched her that night in a lace set I'd never seen before. She wore it for him, but when he entered, she faced the camera and slowly said, "I want to make a little movie tonight." She bent over the armrest, looking directly into the lens while he took her from behind. The camera trembled slightly as she rocked under him, her lips parting as silently gasped. She mouthed, "Ethan, my name." I stroked myself to the rhythm of their sex. My guilt burned away. This wasn't betrayal anymore. It was confession. When she came home the next morning, hair a mess, lips bruised, reeking of him, I met her in the kitchen. I placed my phone on the table, and I pulled up the footage. She looked, didn't even flinch. "You knew," I said. Her smile was small, dangerous. I hoped she responded. Why? Camilla stepped close, her breath hot against my neck. Because you only me when you're watching me sin. She kissed me then, fierce, claiming. I pushed her against the wall and made her right there, pulling her panties aside, the scent of him still on her thighs. She moaned into my mouth, whispering, Do you want to keep watching? Or do you want to join in next time? I never took the cameras down. I just bought more. Sometimes it's him. Sometimes another. Sometimes just her, touching herself, whispering filthy things to the lens. We talk less now, but we make love more. And I no longer fear silence. I listen to it, obsessively, because in our glass house, every crack has become a window, and I never blink. You've just tasted a drop of the dark. Ready for more? Subscribe to Amorous Sanctum and let the shadows pull you deeper into a world of forbidden fantasy and wicked romance. Have a dark desire you love to see unfold? Whisper it in the comments. We adore your imagination. Until we meet again, don't be afraid to crave. The key was small, tucked inside her jewelry box behind a broken watch. I thought she'd thrown away. I wasn't snooping, not really. Lana had asked me to grab her passport while she was in the shower. It's in a safe, she called over the hiss of the water. Bottom drawer of my closet. Only, the safe wasn't empty. The passport was there. So was a stack of cash, a small velvet pouch, and a handful of mini recording tapes with labels in her sharp handwriting. Us, Montauk, the first one said. Second, kitchen, red dress. And the last tape, dizzy night, you remember. I didn't, not really. I remember Montauk, our first trip away, wild and messy. I remembered that red dress, or maybe just how it made me feel. But dizzy night. A chill worked its way down my spine. Curiosity was already itching under my skin. I pocketed the passport and left the rest, except for the tape marked Dizzy Night. I told myself I'd return it and that I just wanted to know, but something deeper was gnawing at me. A need. Maybe to rethread what had frayed in the years since we married. We weren't broken. Not exactly, but sometimes Lana looked at me like she was waiting for something to wake up in me again. Back in my office, I dug out the old camcorder. Dust spilled from the case like breath held too long. I clicked the cassette into place and static, then her laugh. I froze. The screen flickered. There we were, my younger self, half drunk, maybe more, grinning like a fool, shirt unbuttoned, slurring half-sweet things. And Lana, on the edge of the frame, perfectly in focus. Not drunk, not out of it. Her eyes glittered with something sharper than nostalgia. She was directing me. Take another sip, baby. Then tell me who you belong to. Then my voice. You always. The tape stuttered. My gut tightened. This wasn't play. This was layered. You're a good boy when you're soft like this. Lana's voice purred through the speakers. So easy. So open. I didn't remember this. Not her tone, not her guiding me, whispering praise and instruction, steering every movement like she was choreographing it in real time. She made me kneel. Not once in all these years had I recalled this. I thought I had initiated that night, taking control, taking her, but no. She was coiling around me like smoke, setting the rhythm, whispering just enough to lead without breaking the illusion of consent. And I loved it. The camera zoomed into my face, wet with sweat and breathless, as she whispered something into my ear. I watched myself tremble, nod, eyes glassy. "Good boy," she said again. "You'll do anything for me, won't you?" I said yes, over and over. Later that night, she curled beside me in the bed, damp hair brushing my chest, her skin warm and scented with vanilla and something darker. I stared at the ceiling. "Did you find it?" she asked softly. Her voice was full of sleep, or pretending to be. I didn't answer. "You were so obedient back then," she murmured. "It was beautiful." A pause. "I was drunk," I said finally. It came out thin, hollow. She kissed my neck. "You were malleable. There's a difference." I didn't sleep. Not really. Lana's breath rose and fell steady beside me. And I just lay there, spine stiff against the shades, head pulsing with images I hadn't seen in years. Except now, they weren't what I remembered. The next morning, I waited until she left for her Pilates class before I went back to the safe. Same codes, same hush of steel. 3 more tapes. Kitchen red dress, us mom talk, and 1 unlabeled. I took all 3 this time. I started with red dress. I needed to see if Dizzy Night was a one-off, a fluke of memory and drink. But it wasn't. The screen flickered to life with Lana leaning over the kitchen counter. In that clinging red silk, I could see myself behind her, shirtless again, running my hands over her hips like she was a prayer. But she wasn't lost in it. Not the way I was. She was watching. "I want you to do something," she said, off camera, low and breathy. She looked directly into the lens. "Strip slowly, not like a joke, like I own the skin you're taking off." You could see me blink, confused for a moment, and then I obeyed. Every movement guided. My voice echoed through the speakers, soft, uncertain, but full of heat. "Like this." "Yes," she said. "Exactly like that." She fed me phrases. "Tell me how I taste. What would you let me do to you if I asked nice? Would you beg if I told you to?" And I did. Jesus, I begged. I said things I didn't even remember saying. Dirty, desperate things. Worshipful things. The kind of things you don't admit to unless you're in the grip of something bigger than lust. I looked like a man possessed. Not once did she touch me without telling me what it meant. "Your mouth belongs to me," she whispered as she pulled me between her thighs. "It's not yours anymore. Say it." And I said it. I meant it. The night had become one of our recurring fantasies. I told the story to friends, and passing even joked about it or how hot it was when I took her on the counter. But I'd never known what really happened. Not like this. And it kept going. Tape after tape, the pattern emerged. I was always a little off, always half lit, slightly drunk, high, or otherwise fogged. And Lana was always there, present, sharp, just outside the shot or whispering into the mic. She was directing, sculpting. It wasn't just the way she was kinky, it was that she was patient, intentional. She had been shaping me. The Montauk tape was hotter. I remember that trip. We were fresh in love, fighting and sleeping and drinking too much on cheap wine and lake air. I remember feeling worshipped, wanted, like I was the one chasing her. But the camera showed a different hunt. It opened with me in bed, face flushed, as slack, eyes half closed. The room was dim, but I could hear waves in the background and the rustle of her dress as she climbed onto me. "Still awake?" she asked in a voice as sweet as it was sharp. "Mm-hmm," I mumbled. And then her fingers slid into my hair, not gently. "I told you not to come until I said," she whispered. I flinched. "I didn't. I tried. You begged me to let you. You remember that?" I nodded on camera. "You said you'd give me anything, that you sign your name to it." There was a silence on the tape, a long one. Then her voice again. "So, let's see how much you meant it." She straddled me, slow, sensual, not playful, not performative, obsessive. She wasn't seducing me. She was claiming me. And I gave it. My voice cracked when I begged. I whimpered. I apologized for things I hadn't even realized I'd done. I called her ma'am, and mistress, and goddess, depending on her mood. I sounded broken open, and I liked it. I sat there afterward, in the glow of the pause screen, sweating, hands over my face. None of this was non-consensual. I couldn't even argue that. But I have never understood the shape of my own desire until now. And now it was like I had been living in the shadow of someone else's memory. Her version of me. A version she trained for years before we even said I do. Lana hadn't just loved me. She had molded me. And somehow, I had let her. That night over dinner, she asked casually, "Do you still love me?" The question came out of nowhere. I nodded confused, of course. She smiled without looking up from her fork. "Good." Then softly, "Did you watch the rest?" I stared. "Yes." And another pause. Then she set her utensils down, delicately. "And did you remember who you really were?" she said. I couldn't answer, not immediately, not with the blood thrumming in my ears and my body already steering under the table. She stood, walked behind me, and leaned down to whisper in my ear, "You were never the one in control, sweetheart." Her lips brushed the shell of my ear. "But you begged so sweetly." The unlabeled tape burned a hole in my desk. I didn't touch it for 3 days. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew once I watched it, something would end. Something soft and safe and delusion inside me, like a wall giving way to floodwater. Because even now, after 2 full tapes of proof, part of me still clung to the belief that I was the one who started all this, that I was the wolf. But I wasn't. I was the one she'd led into the trap with silk and praise. I was the one who had begged to be kept. And maybe, just maybe, I still wanted to be. I waited until she was out again, this time for brunch with her sister. She kissed me on the cheek, slow, deliberate, and lingered long enough to make sure I flinched. She knew. She always knew. When the door shut behind her, I closed the blinds and slid the tape into the camcorder. It clicked in with a sound too loud in the quiet house. The screen blew to life with a grainy shot of a hotel room. Dim, luxurious, not one I recognized. Candlelight shimmered on the walls, shadows flickered, then I came into frame. I looked destroyed. Eyes glassy, knees bruised, shirtless, collarbone blooming with what looked like bite marks. I was kneeling on the floor, hands behind my back, a blindfold around my eyes. My breath came shallow, like I just finished crying. Then her voice. "I told you this would be different," Lana said from somewhere behind the camera. "No games, no safe words, no pretending." My head turned toward her slow. "Yes, mistress," I murmured. "You said you give me everything. I want to hear it again." "I'm yours," I whispered. "Everything, every part of me." A long silence followed, then a low hum, her approval. "Good boy." I watched myself react to the phrase like it was a drug. My whole body softened. It didn't matter how marked I was, how small I looked. I glowed from the inside out, and then she stepped into the frame. Wearing black, leather, her hair was twisted up, exposing her throat. The version of Lana I'd only glimpsed in flashes in real life. Not the soft wife who made grocery lists and folded towels. No, this was the architect, the conductor, the woman behind the curtain. She knelt in front of me. "You know why I filmed this?" she asked. I nodded. "For the day you forget what we are, what you are, so you'll never lie to yourself again." I started to cry on the screen. Real tears, silent, wrecked. And she kissed my cheek. "I don't need to force you. I never did. I just had to make you feel safe enough to give it up yourself." She stood, turned the camera toward the bed, and said only one thing more before the screen went black. "Watch this when you're ready to come home." I sat frozen for a long time. The house was too quiet. My throat was dry. I felt hollow. Not violated, not exactly, but exposed in a way I hadn't thought possible. It wasn't just about power or kinks or control. It was about knowing me before I knew myself. She sees something I hadn't been ready to face, a hunger I hadn't dared name, and she nurtured it, carefully, lovingly, completely. And now, watching it all back, I realized I wasn't angry. I was aching. She came home late, deliberately. I was waiting in the kitchen, the tape stacked neatly on the counter. I didn't speak at first. Neither did she. Her eyes flicked to the tapes, then to me. You watched all of them, she said softly. I nodded. Lana stepped closer. Her heels tapped softly on the wood. She ran her fingers along the top of the tape, the one with no label. That night was important, she murmured. You gave me everything, without games, without filters. You filmed it, I said. I filmed your truth, so you never lose it. I swallowed. You made me into something I didn't know I could be. No, she said. I unwrapped you. She stepped into me now, chest to chest, her fingers trailing up my jaw. You begged, you obeyed, you cried for me, and still, you felt safe enough to fall asleep with your head in my lap. That's not manipulation. It felt like love, I whispered. Her smile was slow and dangerous, because it was. Later that night, she led me into the bedroom, no instructions, no commands. She just stood there, waiting. I dropped to my knees, not because she told me, not because I was drunk or high or half conscious, because I wanted to, because I remembered. And as her fingers tingled in my hair and she whispered, "Welcome home," I understood what the tapes had always been trying to tell me. She never took anything from me. I gave it, and I'd give it again. You've just tasted a drop of the dark. Ready for more? Subscribe to Amorous Sanctum and let the shadows pull you deeper into a world of forbidden fantasy and wicked romance. Have a dark desire you love to see unfold? Whisper it in the comments. We adore your imagination. Until we meet again, don't be afraid to crave.